So we get to another chapter, which is when first time I went through it, I thought it is a fairly easy chapter. We just have to read through it, and probably there is not much to discuss. Then, when I went through it again and again, couple of times more, it revealed itself. So we will be going through it. It is a very important chapter actually. Now you come to think of it. But as always, before we start any session, let us center ourselves, tense the whole body, with double inhalation, vibrate the body and relax. Couple of times more. Sitting up straight, with eyes closed, gaze uplifted at the point between the eyebrows. Let us invoke the presence of God and Gurus here with us. Let's pray together, Divine Mother, Heavenly Father, friend, beloved God, great masters of Kriya Yoga, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Shri Yukteswarji, beloved Gurudev, Paramhansa Yogananda Ji, saints and sages of all religions, dear friend and guide, Swami Kriyananda, humbly we bow at thy feet. O great masters of Kriya Yoga, be with us here today. Guide our thoughts, guide our understanding. May we dive deep into these teachings and imbibe them in our daily lives. Help us to grow spiritually, walk this path with a constant reminder of who we really are and where we are headed, and not get too caught up with the worldliness of this world. We are thine, be thou eternally ours. Bring us home. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. One chat. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Wouldst thou come, just for once come to me. Wouldst thou come, just for once come to me. Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Wilt thou come, just for once come to me. Wilt thou come, just for once come to me. Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Will my days fly away without seeing thee, my Lord? Night and day, I look for thee, night and day. Night and day, night and day. Door of my heart, open wide I keep for thee. Centering ourselves, closing our eyes, just for a moment, pausing here to absorb the words of this chant. Shanti, Shanti. So last chapter was quite interesting, where he was going through various trouble with the new school, which was supposedly uh, run by Christian missionary or church, basically. Yet, it was everything that was a typical American culture. That was, the culture there was that was creeping in was very disturbing. That to the extent that he finally quit that school because he was threatened for not being American enough. So this reminds us of Sri Yukteswar in Holy Science talks of 8 meannesses of heart, and they are like, they are hatred, fear, grief, shame, pride of race, pride of pedigree, race prejudice is what he said, pride of pedigree, a narrow sense of respectability. So and he said that the moment these are the obstacles, he said, especially for those who are on the spiritual path, the 8 meannesses of the heart are kind of obstacles that stop us or doesn't allow the natural love of the heart. Everyone, each one of us, the soul quality is love, right? There's a natural love, but we are not able to express it because of one or more or all are present in a person. So what we saw in the last chapter of these boys feeling very offended because Swami Kriyananda had developed the British accent because of the last school he went to in Britain. So he had his British accent, and they felt that it was an insult for the American, pride, that he was not American enough. So it is, and I think that could be one of main reason that Swamiji put these were the stories that he's sharing about his growing up years. Is also, there are lessons in for each one of us, right? So this is the main one, that from the last chapter, there's a main lesson that we all have to carry, to be watchful. Does any of these um, meannesses of heart exist in us? So introspecting, because we might feel that it is not there, but we need to go beyond the layers to really understand whether we have completely overcome a particular meanness of heart. Because unless and until we do that, growing, progressing on the path is not uh, really possible. Meditation, if we find that our meditations are not deep enough, or very restless, something somewhere is, in our daily life is giving. So we need to bring that in and work on it. So with that, so let us go to this next chapter. It is again a super chapter. A paper, and then the names he is giving to the topic names. A paper rest house, the popularity game. So let us listen to Swamiji reading out this chapter, and then we will discuss what he is trying to tell us through this story.
Be what anyone else wanted. Others had planned out their lives more or less confidently. They would get Most of the young people I met during my adolescence seemed secure in their values. The 1940s were not like today, when it is common for young people to question society's values, to seek meaning, to ponder its and their relationship to the universe and to God. When I was in high school, as nearly as I could tell, I walked alone in such questing. I knew no guidelines to follow. I wasn't even sure what it was I was seeking. All I knew definitely was that I wanted something, and that something didn't seem to be what anyone else wanted. Others had planned out their lives more or less confidently. They would get good jobs, make money, get ahead in the world, marry, settle down in Scarsdale or some other wealthy community, raise children, give cocktail parties, and enjoy the fruits of a normal worldly life. But I already knew I didn't want money. I didn't want to get ahead materially. I wasn't interested in marrying and raising a family. I knew well enough a few of the things I didn't want, but I had no distinct notion of what it was I did want. And in this uncertainty, I sometimes doubted whether my disinclination for the things others prized wasn't proof of some inadequacy in myself. Had others, I wondered, secure as they seemed in their norms, achieved some insight to which I myself was blind? Certainly my lifelong inability to adopt a conventional outlook had been for years a source of intense unhappiness for me. Now that I had left Kent and was enrolled as a senior in Scarsdale High School, I determined to overcome what was surely a defect in my own character. This new school year, I decided I would try a great experiment. I would pretend to myself that I liked what everyone else liked, that their values were my values, their norms mine. I would see whether by deliberately adopting their outlook, I could not begin at last to feel at home with it. If I succeeded, how easy my life would become. Resolutely I set my sights. This last year of high school would mark my giant step forward into normalcy. As a first step toward swinging with the crowd, I seized energetically on swing music. Every week I listened eagerly to the radio with my brothers to learn which popular songs had made it onto the hit parade. I put on crowd consciousness like a suit, and soon found that it fit snugly enough. In shouting competitions I joined in and shouted. In laughing I bubbled with the best. I dated, I danced, I became the vocalist for a dance band, and as I made all this noise I found incredibly that I both liked it and was liked for it. I began the school year with a major advantage. Both of my brothers were popular. Bob, who was in the 10th grade, was loved by everyone, including upperclassmen. His was not the typical attitude of the big man on campus, more interested in being loved, that is to say, than in loving, and ever careful to associate with only the right people. Bob genuinely liked everybody. It made no difference to him whether they were looked up to or down upon by others. He was their friend, and they knew it. Unable to tone his voice lower than a gentle boom, he dominated every gathering, but no one seemed to mind. Somehow in his company, they felt more generous, more sure of their own goodness. His enthusiasm for life was boundless. One day, coming home dizzy from playing in a football game, he was found to have a fever of 105. Ill as he was, he had insisted on finishing the game. They called him Bucky after Bucky Walters, the famous baseball player. Though the nickname remained with him, I myself never used it, for I knew that he also had a deeper side, one that he didn't often reveal to others, a refined sensitivity to music, a deep gentleness, a certain nobility of character, all of which seemed to be rather betrayed by the hail fellow well met implications in that nickname. From the start it was obvious to everyone that Bob and I were very different specimens. A few of my classmates, besides, had heard from Phil Boot, my ex-roommate at Kent. Phil also lived in Scarsdale, and had shown enough sense of community responsibility to warn them what a social disaster I was. For Bob's sake, however, and because I was so obviously determined to mend my lamentable ways, they gave me the benefit of the doubt and accepted me kindly enough into their midst. Scarsdale High was much larger than Kent, a fact which permitted adolescents with a wide variety of interests to mix happily together without the pressure to conform that there had been at Kent. Being Bob's brother automatically threw me into the in crowd, a position I boldly accepted as the kind of challenge I needed to bring off my, quote, great experiment with a maximum of success. I tried out for the football team. At 136 pounds, I was hardly first-string material. Still, I played hard during practice sessions and during the games ardently supported our team from the bench. Unfortunately, for any dreams of glory I might have harbored, I was a halfback, and so also was Charlie Rensenhouse, the team captain. Openings in that position were rare. The only time I actually made it onto the playing field during a game was once when Rensenhouse got hurt. "Walters," Coach Buchanan shouted. "My big opportunity?" "Yes, sir," I cried, leaping eagerly to my feet. "Walters, get out there and help Rensenhouse off the field." In track I did better. There hadn't been a track team at Kent, so I had never learned the proper starting techniques. But I was a fast runner and managed to acquit myself creditably. I actually ran the 100-yard dash in only 10.2 seconds at my first meet. Unfortunately, I pulled a ligament early in the season and was out of the running for the rest of the school year. Of my classes, my favorite was English. Lucille Hook, our English teacher, took a keen interest in her subject, loved her students, and obviously wanted with all her heart to share with us what she knew. She was as much our friend as our teacher. With her encouragement, I wrote short stories and poems, some of which appeared in the school magazine. While none of them was particularly consequential, they were good enough, at least, to gain me a reputation as a budding talent, and fanned my resolution to write for a living. One of the students in my French class was a girl named Ruth, later voted the most beautiful girl in our senior class. I dated her and became as infatuated with her as any boy is likely to be with his first girlfriend. But there were potholes on the road to romance. Dad, for fear of spoiling us boys, gave us a weekly allowance of only 50 cents. I had to save for 2 weeks merely to take Ruth to the movies. Even then, we usually had to walk the several miles to White Plains and back. This wasn't the ideal setup for making a good impression on a girl. Worse still, when it came to something so deeply personal as romance, I couldn't put on the extroverted bluff that was carrying me along successfully enough in other departments of my life. Somehow I'd conceived the notion that I was physically unattractive and that I had nothing really worthwhile to offer anyone. Because I doubted my own worth, moreover, I was afraid to trust myself to another person's feelings about me. When another boy, a large, perennially joking, and popular football star, began to date Ruth, I hadn't the self-confidence to compete with him. For that matter, I wouldn't have competed with him even if I'd been bursting with confidence, for I could never see love in the light of self-imposition and conquest. Singing I found a joy. Mr. Hubbard, our chorus director, tried to persuade me to take it up as a career. "There's money in your voice," he kept insisting, not aware that money was probably the poorest lure he could have offered me. When I was 16, my father offered to buy me a tuxedo. I knew intuitively, even then, that I had a very different destiny. "Don't bother, Dad," I said. "I'll never wear it. In fact, I'll never earn enough money to pay income tax." Fanciful as this prediction must have seemed, it was to prove true. That year I sang in Handel's Messiah and played Sergeant Merrill in Gilbert and Sullivan's Yeoman of the Guard. At our church of St. James the Less, my brothers and I also sang the roles of the three wise men in the Christmas pageant, an event which I was surprised to learn many years later was still remembered by some old-timers in Scarsdale. Other activities at the church, I must admit, held less appeal for me. Our minister, Father Price, kept threatening us in his sermons that if we didn't toe the straight and narrow, we'd soon end up, quote, right in the lap of the Nazis. Instead, I began bending rather too far in another direction. Doug Birch, a friend of Bob's and mine, introduced me to Nick's, a nightclub in Greenwich Village, famous as a hangout for Dixieland jazz enthusiasts. Eddie Condon, Pee Wee Russell, and other jazz, quote, greats played here with such consummate skill that I actually found myself growing to like jazz, though later I decided it lacked heart and was too intellectual. Fascinated with this new scene, I absorbed all its trivia. How the wife of one of the taller players used to beat him up, how the band ate in a nightclub across the street because Nick wouldn't feed them properly, how a little old lady would show up on Saturday evenings, take a front table and clap her hands enthusiastically to the music, shouting, yeah, yeah, like any teenager. It is amazing that people can make as much as they do out of this kind of, quote, news, merely because celebrities are involved. But they do, and we did. It was at Nick's that I took my first alcoholic drink. Of all the foolish pastimes to which mankind is given, drinking must surely rank near the top of the list. Few people, I imagine, take up either drinking or smoking for pleasure alone. It seems more a question of not wanting to appear gauche. At any rate, those were my motives. Alcohol I found at least not positively sickening, but smoking was like learning to enjoy rotten food. I remember clearly the first time I learned to inhale. A girl at a party in Scarsdale showed me the neck. One drag made me so dizzy I almost slipped to the floor. Then, with the kind of twisted idealism that marked most of that year for me, I told myself sternly, I'm going to master this if it kills me. Little did I realize that true mastery would have meant not succumbing to such silliness in the first place. That evening I succeeded in mastering smoking, but I'm afraid it wasn't long before smoking mastered me. The worst thing about drinking from a spiritual standpoint is not the temporary stupor it may induce, nor the hangover that can follow an indiscreet night on the town, nor the illusory high one gets even if he drinks only lightly, but rather the long-range effect alcohol has on his personality. In some subtle way, it seems to make one more earthy, one's perceptions less refined. One inclines, even if only slightly, to scoff at things he formerly considered sacred. The ego becomes less sensitively responsive to its environment and more self-assertive, even aggressive. It is as if one felt a need to grip harder in an effort to compensate for the diminution of one's natural powers. These effects may, as I said, be observed not only during hours of inebriation, but as actual long-term personality changes. The explanation may be that things, inert though they seem, actually act as media for various states of consciousness. We may scoff, as I used to do, at holy Joes in church who denounce liquor as a tool of Satan, but laughter has been known to hoot down many a truth. The very inclination, so common in societies where drinking is popular, to tell jokes about drunkenness, suggests a subconscious desire to silence the disapproving whisper of conscience. For everyone must know deep inside that drunkenness is an insult to man's true nature. Another, quote, thing which greatly influences consciousness is music. Looking back, I am astonished to see how quickly, by my willing exposure to swing music, I came to assume attitudes that I had formerly thought quite foreign to my nature. As months passed, it became increasingly second nature to me to see life in terms of sports, romance, and good times, to laugh with the loudest, roam about with the most restless, and give and take in the youthful exuberance of an ego competing more or less insensitively with other egos. Yet somewhere deep within me, there was a watchful friend who remained unimpressed, who questioned my motives, observed my follies with detachment, and demanded of me with a sad smile of reproach, "Is this what you really want?" I was honest enough with myself to admit that it wasn't. Gradually, the longing within me grew to stop wasting time. I could see that there was too much in life to learn, too much towards which to grow. For my English source theme at the end of the school year, I chose as my subject, quote, the different concepts of the universe held by ancient civilizations, and the quality in each civilization that influenced the development of its own concept. Questions that played no part in my great experiment asserted themselves persistently. What is life? Is there meaning in the universe? What is the purpose of life? Such issues could not be laughed away with another evening at Nick's. One evening, a classmate and I visited a local diner, an inn place with a high school crowd. While we were waiting for seats, my friend began to make an impromptu accompaniment to the music that was playing on the jukebox. Laughingly, I encouraged him. All the while, however, my silent inner friend demanded of me indignantly, "What is this cacophony, this jerking about, this nodding of the head like an animated puppet, this contortion of the facial muscles? Is not this too evidence of a kind of drunkenness?" My friend wrote in my yearbook afterwards how much he had enjoyed our jam session together. I myself, however, felt merely embarrassed by the memory, as though we had been the playthings of a rhythm-induced hysteria. At Scarsdale High, I learned that I could, if I wanted to, play the great American popularity game and come out, in a sense, a winner. But my success had not made me any happier. If I felt that I now understood something of what other young people wanted from life, I couldn't say that their vision held any gripping attraction for me. I was back almost at the beginning. The one thing I had learned this year was how to wrap a veil around myself and hide my true feelings from others. Well, perhaps after all, this was a useful lesson. There can be little merit in exposing one's highest aspirations to people who don't appreciate them. But it wasn't much of a step towards fulfilling my aspirations. My next step, I realized, must be directed more intelligently toward that fulfillment.
This is interesting, no? How he answered. One thing I had learned this year was how to wrap a veil around myself and hide my true feelings from others. Isn't that how most people go about in the world? I mean, even though they might look cheerful or they might act a certain way, are they really what they are trying to project? Everybody's having a veil because they don't want, people don't appreciate the truth, right? So, okay. So the first page where he talks about how a typical, the world was and the place, it was a nice, rich place. And uh, where he says, I knew well enough a few of the things I didn't want, but he didn't know what exactly he wanted. He was growing up in a culture where what he was looking for was not really available there. So he was completely confused. He knew he didn't want any of the things that was happening around him. He never felt he belonged there. He never felt that he wanted those. Yet he didn't know what he wanted. So that this is the reason, that the Dwapar Yuga, ascending Dwapar Yuga, where Babaji then assigns master to Sri Yukteswar that I will send you a disciple. You have to train him and send him to the West, because Jesus Christ had come and said that my people have forgotten true Christianity, right? So, Master, when he's in his school in Ranchi, one day he said, as I was meditating, he had a vision, thousands of, lot of American faces. At the moment he saw them, it was a very clear, very vivid vision. And he said, the moment I saw them, I knew these were Americans. This is America. And these were like, the eager souls you know, who were calling out. Those souls were calling out to their guru, because they were ready, but they didn't know what they wanted. They didn't have anybody to guide them, right? So, and towards the end of Master's life, once Swamiji, I think, had asked that, have everyone who you had seen in that vision, have they all come? Um, because Master had already started hinting that his time is almost getting over. And Master said, yes, almost all, maybe just a couple of them I'm waiting for. And I think they finally did come in the last year that Master finally left the body. So he had seen them all in that vision, who all will come on the path or will follow him. So must have been, Swamiji also must have been one of them, because he did come too, just 3.5 years before Master left his body. And because, I mean, the build-up is here, because, we have seen right from chapter 1, where he felt, I don't belong here. Something is wrong. Something is missing. What he doesn't know. And he's seeking something. So that finally, comes to pass. I mean, comes to the culmination of when he meets his master. And here again, he says, I am determined to overcome what was surely a defect. He sees whatever he was going through as his own problem, his mistake, his defect. Others were pretty happy with what was happening around him. So the problem must be he himself. So he is now trying to conform. He's saying, oh, I'm going to experiment. That what can I change, even if I'm not enjoying it? What can I do to kind of, start belonging there? This is what is a major problem. The world is in a certain way, and it expects everyone to conform to the standards that they set. If you don't, then you are like, you're a failure, or you don't belong, and they'll shun you, and you're made to feel like you are not good enough. So Swamiji kind of, got caught in that. So he said, okay, let me, this last year, let me make that giant step forward into normalcy, he says. And so he says he put on a crowd consciousness. What is a crowd consciousness? Where it's a herd mentality, so everybody is doing the same thing just because everybody else is doing. So you don't want to be left behind. So you're also doing what is expected of you from the other people. So whether they are right, whether they are wrong, doesn't matter. You just want to belong there so that you're not left behind. So he says he started listening to a certain kind of music, and then he started to like. This is the main important point. He says, when he's saying that I would try this experiment, if I succeeded, how easy my life would become. That is the main problem, no? Because Master said, the very famous quote of Master is, an easy life is not a victorious one. So that's something to think about. So then he says that, he started listening to this music. He's, he had put on that crowd consciousness like a suit. And he did all the things that are expected, that is normal for those people, just so that he's liked. And it was all the additional benefit was his younger brother was very popular. And that kind of, made him acceptable to them, even though some of them knew that he had problem. He was not very normal and had problem in his previous school from other people who had come in. But because of Bob, and in this family, you can see that they're kind of very expansive. He's saying Bob didn't go with certain people because they were rich or they were more popular, but he was genuinely, he liked people. And he was friends to all. And that is what, he was very magnetic. So he's saying that every gathering he went to, even though he had a booming voice, nobody minded. He was like, somehow in his company, they felt more generous, more sure of their own goodness. The family itself, I think it's a trait that even the brother, though he was not very spiritually inclined or looking for answers the way Swamiji was, but in his own way, he was a very, very nice person, which was like, and the world does respond to that when you give out genuine love. It was this natural love of his heart, and the world responded to it. So then it goes on. Next page is just he's talking about his brother, and how that helped. So even though there were negative remarks about him, but he was genuinely trying to belong, and being Bob's brother also helped, and that kind of made it. Other opportunities also came along, and but he still says that when that the girl he was dating went off with another guy, he that he's always wanting to do the right thing. So he's saying that for I could never see love in the light of self-imposition and conquest. So he didn't ever go to compete with them. One, he had self-doubts. He didn't believe that he was good enough, he was good looking enough. That also was there. But more than that, he said it is not right. If this is how somebody has to win love, then it is not worth it. So then he goes on where he's just going on getting more and more into what the culture was and what was acceptable that would make him popular, and to the extent that he says he started enjoying it. It wasn't just because I have to do it, so forcefully he was at some point it shifted for him. He was enjoying it. That is the, I think, the the power of Maya. We cannot be very confident that I can do anything, it's okay, um, I will not be affected by it. This is a very, very important point. Initially he said, oh, I want to, this last year at least let me get by without getting into trouble. So he's trying to put on a persona which was not him, but slowly it started creeping in. The Maya has that's it's a force, right? It is a force, very powerful force. So we cannot undermine the power of that force. So slowly he started to enjoy it. He started to do everything not because he has to, but he started to like it. So he was fine. He started liking jazz. He started, those little trivia things about other people, the celebrities and all, trying to, I mean, such a useless information, but aren't all of us, the whole social media is about that, right? You get into Instagram or you get into any of the Facebook, they're constantly being fed all these reels and the stories and all about celebrities, where they're going there, they're coming. People are fascinated. And that is why they are constantly coming on the feeds, because it does have a certain kind of, power to pull us in. So he says that is why he's saying it is amazing. Even in the days when social media wasn't there, there used to be this trash magazines that people would buy and read, the film magazines and all, because they were genuinely interested in what this celebrity or that star is doing, or who are they with. It was quite interesting for people, and it just got more easily accessible for people to find out now. So he's saying it is amazing that people can make as much as they do out of this kind of news merely because celebrities are involved. But they do. And we did, he says. So, and now he's doing because he's also genuinely interested. That is the power. And then he says, I had my first alcoholic drink. He started to smoke. Uh, his reason was not to appear gauche, right? Um, this can be our takeaway. We all have. I will be talking more on this habit building that happens, but this can be our takeaway, that we look into certain things that we got in, and all of us have a genuine reason, the so-called genuine reason, like where he says he didn't want to not belong, so he had. Many people have that reason, or they were genuinely interested to find how does it taste, so they get in. So just go back and check if there are any of those things that you would like to overcome, and what was it in the first place that brought you there. got you into that? And then we will discuss more on that. And then what can you do to get out of it? I mean, are you really interested to get out of it in the first place? And if you do, then what should you be doing? We will be discussing that. So he says, again, he's talking about him getting to smoke, and he's saying that I told myself sternly, I'm going to master this till it kills me. And that evening, I succeeded in mastering it, but I'm afraid it wasn't long before smoking mastered me. And it took him some time to overcome it. I mean, he has written about it when many times he tried. And finally, he also wrote about how he finally overcame it. But it took him a lot of willpower to overcome that particular thing, where he finally said that I had decided I'll become a hermit, and a hermit cannot be smoking. And anyway, hermits don't have money enough to smoke. And so, that was his last attempt, and finally he succeeded in that. We will discuss more on that. And then he says that, when people, the worst thing about drinking from a spiritual standpoint is not the temporary stupor it may induce, or nor the hangover that can follow an indiscreet night on the town, or the illusory high one gets, but rather the long range effect alcohol has on his personality. So it is not just that, during that time people are losing control, but it slowly starts working on the brain. So, on some subtle way, it seems to make one more earthy, one's perceptions less refined. One inclines, even if only slightly, to scoff at things he formerly considered sacred. The ego becomes less sensitively responsive to its environment and more assertive, even aggressive. And it felt a need to grip harder. So this is something Master has spoken about. He quotes this, uh, Jesus's quote. He says, "For to everyone who has will more be given. For to everyone who has will more be given, and he will have abundance. But from him who has not, even that he has will be taken away." So, the way Master uh, described it, especially in this context, is, somebody who has a good habit and, the right things, more will be given to them. And those who have, they got into bad habits and started losing it. And this is exactly what Swamiji has also slowly, it penetrates into their consciousness. And so even the little bit, whatever they were hanging on to, good habits and good thoughts, even that starts slipping away. Like the way he says that, in some subtle way, it makes one more earthy, or perceptions less refined. One inclines to scoff at things he formerly considered sacred. So slowly, even the little bit good that was there starts going away. So it's something to be very careful about. And again, he says that the explanation may be that things, inert though they seem, actually act as media for various states of consciousness. So you start, operating, you vibrating at that low state of consciousness. So we may scoff, um, as I used to do at Holy Joes in church, who denounced, all that. But laughter has been known to put down many a truth, he says. We're making jokes, just to, because they inside they all know that, he says, drunkenness is an insult to man's true nature. So they make jokes out of it, talk about, like, it's okay to be doing this, and it's cool to be doing this. These days the words used is cool. If you're cool, you drink. Okay, another thing which greatly influences consciousness is music, he said. Again, he goes on to say that, looking back, I'm astonished, he says, to see how quickly, by my willing exposure to swing music, I came to assume attitudes that I thought was foreign to my nature. So he started liking those things. So, what happened again? That music, the you were operating. So that is why when we go to certain places, they play a certain kind of music. You go to a nightclub, the kind of music, it's almost like, uh, dulls your consciousness, dulls your even thinking. It's like hypnotizing you into that lowest vibration. So you actually start enjoying that. You go to a mall, or you go to places to buy stuff. the music that they play are in a certain vibration that will make the shop. I mean, this there is research done on all this, that they play that music that will help you to switch into that consciousness. So for shoppers, they want more you to buy more and more. So they play that kind of music. So be always very careful the kind of music. I mean, there's a lot that Master has written on this. I mean, Master also in autobiography talks about J.C. Bose, who had done experiment, like he would play a certain kind of music to plants and how it will respond. So to those classical music and all, it will grow nicely, and to the rock music, it will shrivel and die. That can happen to plant, which is it's the lowest probably in the whole scheme of so-called consciousness development. Imagine what the kind of music we are listening to affects our nervous system. On a general basis, our kids, the kind of music they listen to all the time, it's scary that we are exposing ourselves. I mean, we go on the road, some people play those loud music in their cars and going by, not only affecting themselves, but people around them. Or go to the nightclubs, the kind of music they play, they listen to, what it must be doing to their physical body. Forget about the mental thing, the body itself, physically, mentally, everywhere they are getting. So the consciousness, that is why you find so much crime, right, from that happens after people have visited to these places of such low vibration. So okay, so that's something we all need to be very careful about. That we listen to Swamiji's music, you just play that in the background, and it is so uplifting, so takes you to that super conscious state. These are very important things to think about, to be careful about, to be conscious about, to be aware about at all times. Okay, so now he says, yet somewhere deep within me, there was a watchful friend who remained unimpressed, who questioned my motives, observed my follies with detachment, and demanded of me with a sad smile of reproach. Is this what we really want? Pause here. I mean, this is really, all of us have that conscience. There's that voice that tells us, even when we are doing certain things, we so-called say, oh yeah, I'm enjoying. But there's always a voice inside each one of us. Sometimes we just smother it down, saying, that's not nothing. Pause. Try to listen to it more. It will guide us to the right thing. And now those who are of us are on the path, and we are the disciples of this great Guru. He's always talking to us. He's always guiding us. And in that poem, God's Sportman, he says, I will smile through your eyes and I'll cry through your eyes when you are, I'm not saying the exact words, when you are making certain mistakes. So let's pause here and go back to that habits part that I was talking about. I will read exactly what Master said. I don't want to make, even put one word here and there to what Master said, because even what his words have the power, the vibration behind it. So what he says about habit, Master said, what are habits? Habits are repeated performance of an action that creates a mental blueprint. Every action is performed, so mentally as well as physically, and repetition of a particular action and its accompanying thought pattern causes the formation of certain electrical groove that gets formed in the physiological brain, somewhat like grooves in the phonography. In those days, they used to have the phonography record where you put the needle and it starts playing. And he says each time an action is repeated, these grooves become deeper until even slight attention automatically plays the same actions over and over again. And this is how our habits, our tendencies get formed. So he says that habit of drinking, like drinking, smoking, overindulgence in coffee or tea, or habitual moods of anger, greed, envy, all these are due to this many a times a mechanical this small little actions. It's not like we created it overnight. Every time we did it, little actions performed without any thought of an after effect. And over a period of time, that those grooves got just keep getting deeper and deeper till it becomes second nature for us. Even something very simple like biting our nails, rolling our head, or some people when they sit, they're constantly moving their leg. They're so nervous. They're not even realizing that they're doing moving their, or constantly reaching out to have some chips or junk food when you have nothing to do, or the chocolates, eating, overeating. All these are habits which we do without thinking over a period of time, and we then kind of it starts getting into it. So master says the first drink never made a drunkard. The first act of sensuality never made you a libertine. The first use of narcotics never made a dope addict. He says it was a series of mechanical or ill considered repetitions of such misguided actions that give power to the habits. So he says that, the whole point is, you want to get away from it. He says stop yourself. Most of the time people say ek hi baar liya kya farak padta hai, right? He says stop yourself. That first performance of a wrong, because we don't know whether this is really the first, or the first happened many lifetimes ago, and the moment we took that in this lifetime, that first, the tendency reignited and it starts all over again. So be it alcoholism. So we need to be, our subconscious mind, we don't know what all is ingrained there. So it's always to be careful, not get swayed by, people saying, "Arey, isse kuch nahi hota," that get swayed. And then he says, stop yourself in that first time, attempting it for the first time, for everything, he says. And the problem, he says, is many people who, smoke a lot or drink a lot do not seek or even wish to be free of these slavish compulsions. They delusively think that there is nothing harmful about what they are doing because they don't immediately suffer the painful consequences. Childlike, he says, they fail to visualize the ultimate results of their action. They do not see that they have set into motion the laws that work impartially. So, what we are talking about is law of karma. We have put out that energy. It will some time, these things slowly, they work slowly, but sometime it has to come back. So what do we do? Those of us who already have some of the habits, bad habits, and want to overcome it, he says that, it's channelize that energy, because that energy is already there. We have been putting out a lot of energy to create that habit. So he's saying that, channelize. So it's like, rain down the hill. The water down the hill. When the rain comes, there's a lot of water. So me just putting up a fence is not going to help, because then it will push it down and go. And there is a lot of energy. You can't keep blocking that energy for too long. So what is the better way to do it is channelize it in a different direction, and then it will start flowing in that direction. Similarly, he says that, whenever you want to overcome any bad habit, replace it, that because that energy has to be channelized somewhere, replace it with a positive attitude. Every time you have an urge, get into that, keep acting towards that, the better way, the better channel, the other act, the other habit that you are trying to develop. And it takes time. There will be times when, that's when I was talking about Swamiji wanting to quit smoking, where he said that every time he tried and whenever he failed, he never said, "I have failed." He would always say, "I haven't yet succeeded." So we have put out a lot of energy in developing a particular bad habit. It's not going to go away overnight, yes? It's because the grooves are very deep. So it will take some time. It needs a lot of patience, a lot of willpower. Master used a term, lot of concentration, determination, willpower, concentration, and discrimination is what he said. Right? And interestingly, now that we were talking about the last chapter where there was this person who was, he felt that American pride was insulted because Swamiji was not acting. Master said that all national taste and customs, they are habits circumstantially acquired as a result of environmental influence. And he said that, I would much rather prefer to be a human chameleon, free to embrace the desirable aspects of all nationalities and all creed, rather than, being stuck because we have eaten a certain kind of food. So only this is good, only this kind of uh, uh, the people, the race, this is the only best thing. So he says it's good to, even those are habit that develops because we have seen growing up watching that only. Okay, so another thing is, as I already mentioned, the willpower. Okay, now another thing he also said is willpower is very important to overcome, but most of the time, many times, we don't have the willpower to do the certain things. Then he said, develop won't power. Whenever you are tempted or you're amongst people who are influencing you, just get away from them. Say, I won't do it, and walk out of that place rather than staying there, because it is difficult, and overcoming will take time. As I said, it takes a lot of patience, so it is good to walk out of that place. So again, environment is a very strong influence. So we can't just say that, oh yeah, I can go with them, but I'm not going to be influenced. It is a very big influence until we are safe in the the superconscious state. When we are in samadhi, nirvikal samadhi, till then we are not safe at all. So master said that, if you're trying to develop a certain quality about yourself, or get off certain bad habits, it's good to be around people who are positive, who are the better thing that you are trying to develop. So it's good to be around, for us who are on the spiritual path. It's good to be around our guru bhais. What better than an environment which is when you sit together with them, we talk about guru, we chant, we meditate. We are all trying to be a certain thing. So it's a much more safer environment to be in. And lastly, okay, this is also very important. Master recommended to use to overcome any bad habit. He says, if you're addicted, for example, to smoking, he says, say to yourself, the habit of smoking has been launched in my brain, lodged in my brain. Now I put all my attention and concentration of my brain, and I will that habit to be dislodged. This is the command. And again, he says the best time, he says, is to say it when the subconscious mind is awake, which is like just before we go off to sleep, or when we are about just got up. So that is when the subconscious mind is awake, and he says is the time to plant these affirmations in our subconscious mind and keep working at it. Affirmation, he said, is a very good tool that helps us to overcome any bad habits, or to develop some good habits. More ultimately, it is like how Ramakrishna Paramahansa said that when you have some thorn has come into your finger or somewhere, so what do, you take a pin or a needle and then try to dislodge it, and then throw both, right? You're not going to sit with that needle, so then you throw both away. So this is how a good habit helps us when we want to overcome a bad habit. It's good to have a good habit, channelize it into a good habit, and generally also good habit is good. But ultimately, especially for us who are on the spiritual path, who are trying to find God, we have to go beyond habits, be it bad habit or good habit, and do what is the right thing to do, what is wisdom driven, what is it comes from God. What does God want me to do? What is wisdom driven? What is discrimination? Rather than I do it just because it's I'm in the habit. Even the good things I'm doing because it's my habit to be good. No, I do it because that is the right thing to do. There is a difference between the habit of good being good versus doing the good because that is the only way. That is what God wants me to do. That is wisdom driven. So that is, so we have to go beyond habits and be wisdom driven to, find God. And that is our ultimate destination. So before we end today's session, just last one thing. Let's do this affirmation that Master has given in scientific healing affirmations. Let us do this together. We will say this loudly, then in normal voice, then in whisper, which is to plant it in our subconscious mind. And lastly, I will say it out aloud. And you follow this mentally, keeping your gaze at the point between the eyebrows. It will anyway be good if you sit up straight, close your eyes, gaze up at the point between the eyebrows. And now, first, this is one he's given for curing bad habits. And this is the affirmation for freedom. So let us say this out aloud. Thou art in law. Thou art above all laws. Thou art above all laws. Even as thou art, above all laws am I. O ye brave, good soldier habits, drive away the dark, dark habits. Drive away the dark, dark habits. I am free. I am free. I have no habits. I have no habits. I will do what's right. I will do what's right. Uncommanded by habits' might, I am free. I am free. I have no habits. I have no habits. Now, in our normal voice, thou art in law. Thou art above all laws. Thou art above all laws. Even as thou art, above all laws am I. O ye brave, good soldier habits, drive away the dark, dark habits. Drive away the dark, dark habits. I am free. I am free. I have no habits. I have no habits. I'll do what's right. I'll do what's right. Uncommanded by habits' might, I'm free. I am free. I have no habits. I have no habits. Now we will whisper. Thou art in law. Thou art above all laws. Thou art above all laws. Even as thou art, above all laws am I. O ye brave, good soldier habits, drive away the dark, dark habits. Drive away the dark, dark habits. I am free. I am free. I have no habits. I have no habits. I'll do what's right. I'll do what's right. Uncommanded by habits' might, I am free. I am free. I have no habits. I have no habits. Now, lastly, as you continue gazing up at the point between the eyebrows, plant the seeds of these words into the ether to be drawn upon whenever the bad habits tempt us back to the lower consciousness. We need the cooperation of our own higher self, right? So follow this mentally. I will say it out loud. Thou art in law. Thou art above all laws. Thou art above all laws. Even as thou art above all laws am I. O ye brave, good soldier habits, drive away the dark, dark habits. Drive away the dark, dark habits. I am free. I am free. I have no habits. I have no habits. I'll do what's right. I'll do what's right. Uncommanded by habits' might, I'm free. I'm free. I have no habits. I have no habits. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So with that, we come to the end of this session. It was a very powerful chapter, actually. And any thoughts anybody wants to share before we close the session? It's already very beyond the time. Okay, so see you all next week with another.
Thank you, Janti.
Thanks for joining.
Thank you, Janti.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.